Let's dive into one of the oldest and most fundamental ideas in political philosophy, the social contract. It's a concept that has shaped societies, influenced governments, and whether we realize it or not, affects our lives every single day. It's this big idea that, in a sense, we all have a deal with each other, and that deal has massive implications. Now, to explore this topic, we're going to dive into the minds of two of the most influential philosophers on the subject, Thomas Hobbes and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. First up, we have Thomas Hobbes. Picture this: Hobbes is living through the 17th century, a time of civil war in England. Chaos, violence, and unrest were part of daily life. Hobbes looked around and thought, there has to be a way to prevent this madness. So, in 1651, he published Leviathan, a book where he laid out his version of the social contract. For Hobbes, human nature boiled down to one thing: survival. He had a pretty dark view of humanity, to be honest. He believed that, without some kind of order, people would be constantly at each other's throats in a brutal competition for resources, power, and survival. He even famously described life in this state of nature as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Not exactly an uplifting thought, is it? In Hobbes's view, humans are naturally selfish, competitive, and willing to do almost anything to stay alive. So, he argued that if we were left in this state of nature, society would collapse into a chaotic free-for-all. But Hobbes didn't just leave it there. He had a solution: the social contract. According to Hobbes, people would willingly give up some of their freedoms and submit to the authority of a ruler or government in exchange for protection and security. Essentially, he believed that without a strong authority to keep everyone in check, society would devolve into anarchy. So, in Hobbes's social contract, the people agree to obey the ruler, and in return, the ruler protects them. For Hobbes, a government, even a strict one, is what stands between us and a world of constant conflict. But let's hold that thought and fast forward about a century to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau had a very different take on human nature and the social contract. He looked at society and saw something profoundly different from Hobbes. Where Hobbes saw humans as naturally selfish and violent, Rousseau saw people as naturally good, even gentle. To Rousseau, it was society itself that corrupted people and made them act out of selfishness or cruelty. In his book, The Social Contract, published in 1762, Rousseau argued that people in their natural state were noble, caring, and compassionate. But as societies developed, as people started claiming property, inequality started creeping in, and so did competition, jealousy, and conflict. For Rousseau, the social contract wasn't about submitting to a powerful authority to keep us from destroying each other. It was about coming together to create a community that respects everyone's freedom and equality. Rousseau believed that the social contract should be a mutual agreement where everyone works toward the common good. He introduced the idea of the general will, the collective will of the people, which aims at the common good of all. According to Rousseau, in an ideal society, everyone would put their individual interests aside and follow this general will. So, while Hobbes saw the social contract as a means to control human selfishness, Rousseau saw it as a way to elevate us beyond selfishness, to create a society based on equality and shared values. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, so, which one is right? Well, in a way, both views have shaped modern society, and you can see pieces of Hobbes and Rousseau in governments around the world. Hobbes's emphasis on security and strong authority resonates with societies that prioritize law and order, sometimes at the expense of personal freedom. On the other hand, Rousseau's ideas about equality, freedom, and collective decision-making have inspired democratic principles and movements for social justice. His notion of the general will is central to the idea of democracy, where everyone has a say, and decisions are made in the interest of the whole community. So, let's break this down a bit further. Imagine you're at a concert with thousands of people. You've got your ticket, you're excited, the energy is high. Now, everyone could theoretically push their way to the front, but you know that would end in total chaos. So, you respect the boundaries, you stand in line, you follow the rules. That's Hobbes's idea at work. You're willing to sacrifice a bit of your freedom, maybe the freedom to be right up front without waiting in exchange for a sense of order and security that makes the concert enjoyable for everyone. Now, suppose that concert turns into a community where everyone gets to vote on the music lineup, the setup, and even the snacks offered. Suddenly, it's not just about rules and order, it's about making decisions as a community where everyone's opinion matters. That's Rousseau in action. It's a shift from authority-driven order to collective decision-making. What's fascinating is that both of these ideas have found their way into the way we live. In most modern democracies, there is a balance. We have laws and authorities to ensure stability Hobbes would approve, but we also have rights, freedoms, and a say in how we're governed, which would make Rousseau proud. We want safety, but we also want freedom, and finding that balance is what makes the social contract so relevant today. But it's not just about governments and laws. The social contract touches on personal relationships too. When you agree to respect someone else's boundaries, or when you choose to be honest, you're essentially entering into a mini social contract. You're saying, I'll treat you with respect if you treat me with respect. This unwritten agreement is the foundation of trust, friendships, and communities. One big question we can ask is, where does the social contract come from? Do we sign it willingly, or is it something we're just born into? Hobbes would say it's necessary to sign up for protection, that it's a rational choice to avoid chaos. Rousseau, on the other hand, would argue that a true social contract should be chosen freely, that we should consent to the society we're part of and feel like an active participant. This brings up an important modern issue. What happens when people feel that the social contract is failing? When people believe that the rules aren't fair, that they don't have a say, or that their voices aren't being heard, we start to see protests, movements, and demands for change. This is Rousseau's influence. If society is based on a mutual agreement, then people have a right to change it if they feel it's no longer working for them. Hobbes, however, would argue that too much change can lead to instability, and that a strong authority is necessary to prevent society from falling apart. So, what do we take away from all this? The social contract is more than just a philosophical concept. It's a blueprint for how we interact with each other, how we build societies, and how we strike a balance between individual freedom and collective responsibility. In a way, we're all still negotiating our own social contracts. Every time we follow a law, respect a social rule, or speak up about something we think is unfair, we're participating in this ancient, ongoing debate. So next time you find yourself wondering why society is the way it is, or questioning why we have to follow certain rules, remember Hobbes and Rousseau. They asked these questions centuries ago, and their ideas are still shaping our world today.